Hi, I'm Hilary Russo. Thanks for joining me for the HIListically Speaking podcast. I'm a certified holistic health coach and Havening Techniques practitioner, lover of great conversation, and of course, clever wordplay, HIListically speaking. So welcome to an empowering place where my guests share their transformational stories of trauma to triumph through health, healing, and humor. It's the ultimate brain candy as we find out who we are, how we got that way, and what it takes to be a happy and healthy grown-up. And be kind to your mind. I'm glad you're here. 2015. That's when my health coaching journey began. I walked into a broadcast studio in Midtown Manhattan, as I had done many times before as an on-camera host and presenter. But this experience was different. The energy was different. I like to joke when I tell this story that I felt like I was walking into a spa or a health food store. A small Zen-like fountain greeted me as I walked in the door. The company's cafe smelled more like a Whole Foods than some corporate cafeteria. The people just had a vibe that I totally resonated with, and the content for their online certification program was, well, let's just say I was intrigued. Welcome to IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, the largest nutrition and holistic health coaching school in the world. Now, at the time, it was just a gig, but I soon realized I would be back at this place, not just to record more modules for their health coaching program, but to be part of something bigger. I just had that feeling in my gut, trust the gut. Like I always say, your gut is like a Doppler radar, and when we go against it, we get stuck in the rain, right? You know what I'm talking about. So I trusted, but we'll get to that in a second. My first experience working with a health coach was shortly after that day in 2015. I was cast on the live streaming fitness show Daily Burn 365. During the first year, each of us on the show were actually given a health coach to work with, to be a support system, a guide by our side, a cheerleader on our wellness journey. Cool. I'll be honest. I loved the weekly check ins and the sense of community that surrounded the experience of living well and knowing I was supported, whether the number on the scale moved or not. And that's when it clicked. I want to do more for myself and for others. And not long after that, I returned to IIN, this time as a student. For those of you who have been with me on this journey for some time now, you know I've shared some of my own health struggles. It's why this podcast exists, and I know you get it. Because one size does not fit all, right? So when I made that powerful decision to join the IIN family, it was because I not only desired to improve my own health and well-being, I wanted to touch, move, and inspire others like you on that journey that can sometimes be overwhelming, frustrating, and lonely. And I'm not the only one that gets that. In fact, the health coaching industry is booming, not only with individuals, but in the corporate setting as well. People are paying attention. We are listening to our bodies and realizing this is the only temple we've got. We have to be an advocate for our own health, mind, body, and spirit. Companies are paying attention too. A happier employee means a happier workplace environment. And community, well, that's just the icing on the cake. So, what is a health coach? What do we do? Well, who better to explain that than IIN's head health coach himself, Jim Curtis? But Jim isn't just the head honcho of health coaches and branding at IIN. Jim is a guy who faced his own debilitating illness. Add the stress of being a Wall Street trader for years, and his well-being was not exactly thriving. For decades, he did just about everything to get to the root of his own health concerns. But when healing the whole person took priority, that's when things shifted. And somewhere on that journey, IIN came knocking. So, on this episode of HIListically Speaking, Jim not only shares his own story, but also why the world needs health coaches. And whether you're looking to make a career shift or work with a health coach personally, or just educate yourself about living holistically speaking, learning more is never a bad thing. In fact, I have something really special for listeners, a free sample class to see if health coaching is right for you. And wherever your journey in active well being takes you, let this conversation be part of it. Well, Jim, you're a tough guy to nail down. Busy guy over there working with IAN and all that you do. And I just want to say thank you for sharing the time and allowing me to hold space for you to share more about the world of health coaching and your own personal journey. So thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here, and sorry it's taken so long.
It happens when it happens, right? Isn't that how life is? Everything just happens when it's supposed to happen. What I would love to do is, how I came to know you, being a graduate of IAN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, you being the head coach over there, head of branding. When I heard you speak on stage, I took some time to do a little more research and check out Jim as a person. And hearing your personal journey and your story and just your connection to integrative health and living well and really putting the power in our own hands resonated with me because we all have a story, which is basically why I hold space for HIListically Speaking in this podcast, is to shed light and let people know that, we have the ability to turn our traumas into our triumphs. And you're like the perfect example of that. And having a chance to read your book, The Stimulati Experience, seeing you speak numerous times, whether it's TED Talks or just online in various formats or even in person, I'm touched by that. And I imagine listeners of HIListically Speaking will be as well. So I would just love for you to share a little bit more about your personal wellness journey, if you will.
Okay, well, I'm glad someone read that book. That's a joke that I make. Someone actually bought and read that book. But I was lucky to write that book. And what it was really about is kind of the last 20 years of my experience. And I've gone to see 200 different healers, and became friends with like Gabby Bernstein, who wrote the foreword along the way when I saw her at all dressed in white at John of God, and like all these different things throughout the time. And it really just started 20 years ago when I woke up and couldn't feel my feet and really didn't know why. So, and then it progressed and progressed and progressed until I was very ill. And then one day I just wasn't able to walk at all. And I kind of had to find my way back from that. But I always say, oftentimes I've tried everything. I've gone all over the world. I've done everything from grandmasters of Kung Fu to Reiki masters to going to Switzerland for 2 months to the Paracelsus Clinic. And it's a combination of things that gets you well. It's no one thing. But as you change, and as I change specifically from, kind of being an athlete and a Wall Street trader to not being able to do that, you have to start to integrate your new self. And if you don't integrate your new self, if you don't, have a little bit of a humbling or an ego death, or if you want to hold on to that old person that you're no longer, then you have a real struggle. So I think with illnesses and becoming well and just the evolution of self in general is often hindered by not letting go and moving forward instead of lamenting or grieving for too long that old self. And so that's what I had to learn. And I did. It took a long time, but I did. I learned that, that to embrace the new person I had become. And when I did that, I became very successful. So that's kind of, I know that's a very general story, but that's kind of where my journey has led.
Yeah. And, we can do all the reading and see all the speakers and all the gurus and the sages and learn a little something from everyone, which is always, you can't go wrong with learning, right? And we take pieces from what resonates with us, which I know I've done in my own healing journey. But was there anything specific that really resonated with you that was kind of the turning point in dealing with a chronic illness for over 20 years and just kind of a wake-up call for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I had one very recently, but there was a couple ahas that I had. And one is that I call it the anti-inflammatory mindset. is that with me, because I had a spinal cord, I had something that injured my spinal cord nerves, and it started to act very much like an autoimmune disease. That when my mind was inflamed, it had inflammation. When I was stressed, worried, fearful, my body was like crippled. So when the aha moment was like, okay, a lot of this stuff doesn't matter. A lot of it, a lot of the things that we're worried about are that when we die, it's gone. And so when we're old, it doesn't care. So I started thinking about like that job that I was in, that I was so passionate and stressed out about. And now it's 5 years later and I don't even think about that job anymore. It doesn't, everything's important and nothing matters. That's kind of a play off an old Buddhist saying, but you be passionate, live life, but know that none of it really matters. You're going to move on and change, and eventually, I guess, as the Buddhists always say, the thing we have all in common is that we're all dying, literally. So live your life today, and don't get too caught up with the inflammation that can make you sick. So that was one thing. And then most recently, I had another revelation, and there comes a time where you have to integrate as opposed to seek out. Meaning you could literally, I think I went on, over last Christmas, I went on a silent meditation, and I was hiking in as much as I could hike in the desert in Arizona. And I spoke with a spiritual leader, and I was like, you know what? At this point in my life, I don't need to seek out and do more. I need to integrate and realize that I already have it within. And that was a huge aha, because we can go from bee venom therapy to red light therapy to IV therapy to the next spiritual healer to the next spiritual to the next video. For as long as you live, you can be seeking, but at some point you need to integrate.
What do you mean by integrate? And I want to stress on that, because obviously that's when I came to IIN, understanding what the word integrative meant, I would get a lot of questions about that. So can you explain that to listeners just so they understand more about what it means to integrate in your health?
Yeah, well, with integrative nutrition, we really, what we mean by that is everything that feeds you. So when you integrate your nutrition, it's not just food. It's everything that you're eating, literally, that you're ingesting into your body, your soul, your career. So it's family, it's relationships, it's the purpose in life, it's connection to a higher power. And then that's the primary food. And then, your really secondary food is the food on your plate. And it's really important, by the way, to go out and learn and to grow and to get this information. And then when you have it, you have to recognize that you have it, you've learned it, and it's time to use it and integrate it into your life, right? As opposed to going out and accumulating more right away. So integrative nutrition is everything that feeds you, right? You go through IIN, you go through school, you go through life, and you gain these experiences. And then oftentimes we have this calling to say, I need more experience. I don't have the confidence, or I don't have it within yet. And therefore I'm going to go seek out more. And I'll take classes forever. I'll see the next spiritual guru that will give me more advice. And it's not to say you never need some motivation or inspiration or new learnings. You're constantly learning. But at some point you got to say, I have the confidence, I have the understanding of myself. And now I'm going to go out and use this stuff and live it instead of seek it.
Yeah, I guess in a way it's also, from what I learned, it's being an advocate for your own health, being an advocate for your own wellness. We can seek guidance and support from our doctors, from health coaches, from other kinds of practitioners, but really it comes down to being an advocate for yourself and realizing that I need to know about my body and what my body needs, and then seek out what you need to live powerfully. So that's a strong message to share with people. Do you think that more people are coming into the health coaching space because, and from what you've seen working with IIN, it's about learning more about themselves, or really wanting to help others?
I mean, I love how you put that, being your own advocate, and I think it's a little of both. First of all, with health coaching, you are your first health coaching client, right? You yourself are your first health coaching. So first you learn to live it and do it for yourself. So no matter whether you feel like you're going to help your family or be an advocate for friends in your community or go into the profession of health coaching and have clients, it's for you, because you will change your own life. You will learn to live a life that you love, that's healthier. I just had a family reunion on Cape Cod, and my cousin that had gone through IAN, I hadn't seen her in a while, and she was at the family reunion, and she was telling me all about, and her husband had stopped drinking, and she had lost 25 pounds, and she had gotten her first health coaching client, and she was telling me that she had just, by what she learned, transformed her life in such a way that she never had to have another client. It's just changed her family and her life so much. So I think it starts with you, and then from you, it goes out.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. There are people that go through the program and maybe they're just wanting to learn more and learn about the over 125 dietary theories and understand, or just have a better understanding of what it means to live well and holistically. And I mean, my just to kind of throw back to my own story, when I first came to IIN, it was not to be a health coach, but interestingly enough, I'm one of the educators in the modules because I was hired for my on-camera experience. And I remember coming into the IIN space and the broadcast studio in New York City, and I remember thinking, I'm going to come back here, but I don't know why. And I couldn't pinpoint it for that moment, but in more of the education that I was getting just from reading the information to share with IIN students, I learned, I'm like, I want to learn more about this. And it wasn't until maybe like a year or two later, I actually came back, became a student of IIN, and wound up watching myself in some of the videos.
That's amazing.
I mean, I love that story, and I love sharing that story because as someone who is an expert in health and wellness and shares it a lot on the broadcast mediums out there, to be able to come back and realize, like, I'm kind of learning from myself. Like, look how far I've grown. So whether you're doing it for yourself, whether you're taking private clients, which I'm so happy to be able to create that space as well, or furthering your education and getting different modalities and adding it to your toolbox, it's powerful to be able to know that you have the knowledge to be able to share with your family, with yourself, and with others, and take it wherever you want to go.
I love
Yeah.
that story. That's
So
fantastic.
I was able to share that at IAN Live. What was it? What is this pandemic year? It's like a blur, right? I think we were downtown in New York City, October 2019. I think that's when the IIN Live was last live in person.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to share that. And I love sharing that story because I think it resonates with me, and it just lets people know that there is power in your story. And you talk about that too, the power of storytelling, which I'd love to touch on for a second. Your emotional storytelling. For so long, when we go to see practitioners, therapists, doctors, whatever, a lot of times they would sit back and just, how are you feeling? What's going on? And therapists learn and practitioners learn not to share themselves. But as we see the digital age and the space of digital media grow, I found, even with my own clients and when I'm on the stage as well, that sharing part of who you are connects you with somebody out there, connects your story with somebody. So the power in storytelling is so necessary to be able to connect. And hearing you speak was one of those moments. So can you elaborate on where you feel that power lies? I mean, you mentioned the survival mode. You mentioned how storytelling is really part of your connection with others, but I'd love for you to elaborate.
Yeah, I think wellness is really about today. There's a healthcare marketplace, which is a place, and it's an important place. And then there is kind of the wellness world, right? And the wellness world is often based on experience. It's experience driven. So we are learning to be well through the stories of other people who have found their way. And that's why it is so important that we keep telling the story of what we've been through and what we've overcome. And some people think, perhaps I am not ready to tell my story. Like, I'm not completely healed. I'm not there. And I always say, no one has evolved into white light just yet. So just share what you have come to. There is a place where you can get to that perhaps someone who has not gotten there yet can share. So it's really important to make an emotional connection with people. And that is oftentimes the key to wellness, or the key to motivating or inspiring, is authenticity and vulnerability. So people recognize authenticity and vulnerability and then connect with you in an emotional way, so that when you tell your story, you create that emotional connection, and then it can help people. It can give that hope that's needed for someone often to take a next step in their own wellness journey. So that's why we always say with IN, either like when you like want to get your family to go to the school as well, because you've had such a great experience, and it's less about like, go do this, it's so good, it would be great for you. More like you tell your own story of how it changed your life, and other people want to be a part of it. And that's with any wellness activity or health activity. It's like, I started to meditate, this is what it did for me, this is where I was, and here I am now, and this is why I recommend it. And that's what I think coaches should do as well. It's like that, people don't come to IN because they're doing so incredibly well and they just want to level up to the next level of awesome. Most of the time people are coming because they're struggling. They're struggling like I was, struggling with who am I, what should I do, and why do I feel so badly physically and mentally. And at IN, we give the resources so that you can get out of that and into a place where you feel empowered and strong and happy, and your body is healthy. And that's the story you tell to for the next person who is feeling terrible to get better.
It's living by doing. I think we've all taken tons of courses in our lives, especially as we try to grow and become a better human being, a better person in this world, raising the vibration, connecting with like minds, helping those who might be struggling in some way. But what I've noticed is it's that push-pull theory. The more you tell somebody to do something or you push them in a direction, they're going to pull back, right? It's just living by example. And I've noticed that I've pulled back on some things with, oh, you should do this. You should, right? You kind of pull back on wanting to do something when people kind of push it. But when you just live and be and show the change. I mean, again, referencing back to some of those videos I did just with IN, like I look at myself now and where I am now, and I'm like, it'd be a totally different person standing up there doing it. Not that I wasn't in a good headspace, but I'm in even better headspace now to be able to really share it with utmost integrity, authenticity, and understanding. And I'm not done growing, right? We're all works in progress. So it's a powerful lesson to just be able to share and authentically, like you said, share your vulnerability and the authenticity that you are, and let just people see how you're living, because that's when they're going to want to know more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome share. So, I just want to stop and say real quick, this podcast, I'm really fortunate it's being supported by our friends at Squadcast, and I'm talking with Jim Curtis. He is head of branding at Institute for Integrative Nutrition, IIN, and also the head coach over there. And I've had a chance to hear him speak. I highly recommend you check him out. He's all over the internet. This fabulous book, The Stimulati Experience, which is about your journey in health and wellness, basically that trauma to triumph of your own life. And I just want to say that if you're interested also in learning more about IN, I'm going to post a link on how you can, find yourself just looking through a free course, a free class that they offer, which is such an awesome offering, just so you can get a taste of it. And I've had numerous people that have checked it out and then wound up taking the program because it resonated with them. So why not check out a free class if you're looking to better your own health and live a more holistic and integrative life, because that's really where we should be going in the world. So moving on to health coaching, I remember recently there was an article, I believe in the New York Times, it was over the summer, about the need for more health coaches. And I loved that they featured that as a story. And I remember just like being like, yes, again, whether you're doing it as a profession or whether you're just doing it to better your own knowledge and being an advocate to your own health. When I saw that, I was so jazzed, because just letting people know that that's a possibility for them as either a career or just there are people out there to support you and be that guide by your side. Do you want to elaborate on that? Like, why are health coaches so important?
Yeah, I love seeing that article too. It was in the New York Times. Health coaching has become so mainstream in the last 18
Mhm.
months. It's been so wonderful to see. IN's been like pushing the field of health coaching for 30 years. And then in the last 18 months,
Mhm.
24 months, it's become so mainstream. And that's because more and more people need a coach, and coaching is becoming
Mhm.
something people want. But um, not because people never needed or never wanted coaches. It's just because coaches had to work one-on-one with clients, right? It was like, I got to go see the client, I got to
Mhm.
walk one-on-one, then you got to tell them what a health coach does. The barrier entry was lowered so much when health coaches could see groups of people virtually. And when
Mhm.
major companies started hiring health coaches, and there were new startups. So insurance offered data around CPT-1 codes that would eventually turn into CPT-3 codes. What that means is that in the near future, health coaching will be covered by insurance, which is a very mainstream type of thing. When that happened with acupuncture and massage and chiropractic, it became, those became real, legitimate healthcare. And the same thing has happened with health coaching. So the next part is all these companies started hiring health coaches to come either to the company or to work, whether it was major doctors like Mark Hyman at Cleveland Clinic, or Frank Lipman, or The Well, these new startups around spas and that kind of thing. So you no longer had to be a one-on-one coach. You could work for a company, Peace Health or others. And so then it became easier to get coaches, like I said, because you could go on or find someone from IN and then do it virtually. But so the field exploded because there was more access, and there was more ability for it to become mainstream. And people really saw the value of it, which was, okay, I only get 8 minutes with my doctor and I don't go see him much. A nutritionist or an RD is really expensive. But I have this health coach who's really a guide for me, that I can speak to, that goes from everything from like, what should I buy as for a brand in the grocery store, get what's my grocery shopping guide, to, okay, I have autoimmune, what's kind of a good meal plan for that? Or I need to move, should I do yoga or Pilates? Or my hormone health is, how do I optimize that? Or my gut health or meditation. So health coaches start to get into all these different niches, like doctors did. So there's no longer a doctor. There's endocrinologists, primary care doctors, family medicine, cardiologists, and same with health coaches. They're now gut health coaches, health coaches that focus on meditation and mindfulness, etc. So it just evolved so much that people really started to see the importance of it and how it related to their specific needs. And now you can get
Mhm.
a health coach to really guide you in anything you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And just in the last 18 months, like, how coincidental is that? I mean, we've been in this pandemic, and I know just in my own personal business, it has begun to thrive because people need more support, especially mental health, which is the area I focus on. And the modalities I use and pair it really well with integrative health and integrative nutrition. And there's a balance there, holistic, right? There's a balance that we need to find. But what's so amazing is, like you mentioned, doctors don't have that kind of time. So when you touch base with some kind, as well, an integrative doctor, or also someone that's like, I know somebody that's really great that can support you on this. You can work well with the doctor. You can work in a corporate setting, which is amazing. I love that. Or you can just support one-on-one clients. And we're not. I think I want to also stress too, and I know you talk about this as well, is that health coaching, it does not mean that we're doctors, we are dietitians, we're nutritionists. We stay within our scope of practice. We learn that at IAM, which I think is really important. But being able to be that guide and support, oh, your doctor says this, let me be the cheerleader to keep you on that journey. Let me see what we can do together to take you to that next step. Let's do some workbook stuff. Let's, do a challenge. All of those things make health and wellness fun rather than a chore, you know? And I remember seeing that in my father's own illness as a diabetic. He was, insulin diabetic, insulin dependent, and seeing how everything was doctor, 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 and you're told to change this way or do this thing. And if you're not used to that kind of way of being, it's hard to make a change in your habits with just a doctor saying, here's what you need to do. And you have absolutely no support outside of being told, this is what you need to do to live, right? Or live powerfully. So I absolutely agree with you that there's such power in what we're doing because it's the support we all need as a collective to live really well.
We speak to nurses because nurses are joining the program so
Yeah.
rapidly, and doctors also are
Yeah.
joining the program too. And they get like an hour of nutrition counseling in their kind of like in their
Mhm.
schooling, and they're not getting anything about meditation. I mean, so and the doctor,
Yeah.
your doctor and your nutritionist are not going to go to the grocery store with you. And tell you what cereal to pick. I mean, the health coach is like your buddy, your right hand person that's going to really guide you through those the real
Yeah.
decisions. Yeah.
Right. Right. I'm glad you mentioned that because I was actually talking to one of my really dear friends who is a doctor, and she's doing more classes on functional medicine and looking into IN as well. And she's like, "We don't get any in nutrition. Like there are no classes like that in medical school." And they're starting to offer them as like electives, but to know that to hear doctors say that, like, we don't learn this, and not that nutrition is the primary food, right? But it is important to understand how to guide a person on their journey with whatever their specific thing is, rather than just being the diagnosis or the symptom. They're a human being, they're a whole person, and they need support emotionally, spiritually, physically. Like there's we have the whole body. So it's good to see more doctors doing that, and it's good to see us working collectively with doctors. So that's a cool thing to see. And you have a
And
pretty
food is
cool
medicine.
array of doctors. Food is medicine. Yeah. Was that Hippocrates? Right? Food is medicine,
I
and
don't know
medicine
who
is
that was.
thy food, right?
I just know all the.
I
I
wasn't
just know
there when
all
he
the
said it, so I don't know. You know all the what?
all the modern
All the important.
doctors that say it, like Mark Hyman, and that's the
Right.
common term, but
Oh,
it still holds so true.
yeah, it does. And it's good to see people like that using it. I love Dr. Mark. He's great. I mean, there's such a great group of doctors connected with IIN and constantly learning from them. And every time I go to an event or a retreat or something and it's under one of those doctors' guidance, I'm like, yes, because it's that you're set up for success going to those kind of places, and just bringing that into your own well-being. So all right. So I'm curious, like, what's next with IIN? What in this day and age, especially the digital age, and in the majority right now, we're still kind of connecting virtually as the world starts to open. What are some powerful things happening with IIN that could give people more possibilities?
We are doing a lot that I can't talk about just yet, but we have some things happening in 2022 that are going to be extraordinary. But we're getting back to meeting
Right.
in person. So in October we're having a virtual event that is a business mastermind that we will announce
Yeah.
soon. But in 2022 we're going to have a really big in person. Kind of the live events that you went to last time, where you can come and meet with
Mm,
all and hear people on stage and music and connecting with other alumni. And we're going to do that a lot more often. So I think we have 3 or 4 of those planned for 2022. And we have all sorts of, we just launched a new website called wellnesstoday.com. And we have all
mhm.
sorts of great lives and fun things to do for free on Instagram and Facebooks. But I think what is really happening is, our health coach training program is becoming more and more popular because the health coaches are
Mhm.
needed more than ever, and it's
Mm.
really the career itself. people that don't want to go back to work full time, they call it the great resignation, are looking for like, what am I going to do? I'm not going into the office every day. And it's like, oh, okay, I can work for myself, or I can work virtually, or I can work a couple of days a week in a doctor's office. Really in a role that helps people and that makes an impact on the world. And that's the biggest thing that's happening with us now, is that we are
I love that.
in that trend.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to go forward powerfully. I imagine there's a lot that we can do. I think there's a lot of creative minds that are clicking, especially when you've been spending, or I have at least, spending a lot of time at home the last year, thinking about ways to collaborate, to connect, to create powerful tools for other people to live well, and knowing that that exists within an institution that I believe in, that I'm a part of, is really powerful. So that's exciting. I'm holding back with bated breath here and wondering what's going on in 2022, and hopefully one day be on that stage as well to share, holistically speaking, and brain candy that I love to share.
We'd love to have you.
I would love it. I talked to you guys about that on IN Live. I'm like, one day, man, up there, I'd love to share my story, So we'll make it happen. I'm declaring it, whether it's in 2022 or soon after. Okay. So I would love to play a little game with you. And this is just a little word association game, because having fun and health and healing, part of the humor is part of that, right? There's humor in healing. So I'm going to throw out a word to you. This is just from our conversation that we had. I didn't pre-write these down or anything like that. And what I want you to do is just come back with the first word that comes to mind. One word, Jim. One word. Okay. I do this with my students because I'm a college professor as well, and they love it.
Right.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. All smiles. I love that your smiles to do this. Okay. Storytelling.
Wow, I didn't think I'd go blank. Storytelling is health.
Cool. Survival.
The beach.
Integrative.
Nutrition.
Stimulati.
Experience.
Authenticity.
Vulnerability.
Yeah. I was going to say vulnerable.
Power.
Holistic.
Life.
Not to be confused with holistic. I like wordplay. And health coach. 2 words, but we'll throw a bone for this one.
Needed.
Amen to that. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for sharing this space with me. I am jazzed. I just know that those who listen are going to be really excited to hear more about it, because I get a lot of questions about what I do and how I hold space for others, and just the podcast in general. And your story is a powerful one, and really glad to connect with you. I want to let listeners know that you can check out Jim's book, which is The Stimulati Experience. Jim Curtis, he's head of branding and also the head health coach at IIN. And we're going to put some links on the podcast page that you can check out IIN, maybe, and get a free class and check it out and see if it's for you. And just see what's ahead on the journey. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
No, yeah. My final thought is that I am always so impressed and proud of and in awe of our graduates and what they're doing, and of you. So this, you were so poised, and this was lovely, and one of the easiest interviews I've been on. So keep up the good work. This is an awesome. We'd love to have you more at IIN, and really happy to see what you're doing. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And I have a feeling that will manifest. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Jim. To find out more about Jim, IIN, and to grab that free sample class, check out the link on the podcast page. It's our gift to you in health and healing. And if you're interested in working with me personally on your health and wellness journey, amazing. You can find out more on my website at hilaryrusso.com and set up a complimentary discovery call, and we'll go from there. I'd love to support you. You can also connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Hilary Russo. Let's just have a conversation. And there's nothing more powerful than paying it forward. So if you know someone that would find this episode valuable, consider passing along the Holistically Speaking podcast to just one person. And while you're at it, subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It's just one of the many places you're listening to this show, so thank you. Holistically Speaking is produced by Alan Seals, with music by Lipone Redding, and recorded on Squadcast. And I leave you with this. The best investment you can ever make begins with your own health and well-being. So embrace your wellness warrior within, be kind to your mind, and don't forget to laugh.